Okay guys, we're back on the Nissan 300ZX air conditioning repair, and it lasted one day. What did we do wrong? What did we miss? Join us in this video and you'll see. Okay guys, I already know what's wrong. Our system's empty. I'm just gonna show you anyway. I have to hook the gauges up to do a pressure test again. I've already done it, but let's just go through the motions. As you can see on my gauges, they didn't move. There's nothing in the system at all. So what did I do wrong? What did I miss? We're gonna recharge this with pressure. I'll show you. That one's lower than it was before. That's just adjusted here with your pressure, right? As far as how much to put in, we covered that last time. I generally want to stay under 200 PSI. I mentioned 300, and some of you guys definitely didn't like that number. I get it. You're worried about the evap core. We have commercial HVAC guys on here too that use 300 PSI all day long. For car guys, you don't want to put 300 on that evap core. I understand. I had some comments about evap core made of different material than the condenser, and that's just not the case in my experience. They're both made of the same material. If the condenser can handle it, the evap core should be able to handle it. Anyway, that being aside, I'm just going to put about 100 PSI in this system. That works. Soap and water right here. So what happened? That wasn't there before. If this is a paying customer in this AC repair job that we did, you have one pissed off customer. And if you don't handle it right, there's your 1-star Google review. That's what we're facing right here. This was not our fault. This is a system, it's a 1986 car. These are original AC rubber hoses. When is the last time that hose saw 300 PSI? I mean, it could be a really long time ago. 86, what year is it? 2002, 2022. 36-year-old car, 36-year-old hose, put now under 300 PSI on the high side, maybe even a little bit more. What did it do? It just popped that fitting right where that crush sleeve seals the rubber hose over top of an aluminum tube. That's what happened. So what do we need to do? I need to change that discharge line in particular. I really should be changing the suction line too, and really any rubber hose that's on this system should be replaced. Before I get too long-winded here, let me spray this low side hose and make sure that we don't have any leaks on it, because I know that that high side one's leaking. This would be the inlet. This is the suction line. I just want to make sure this guy's not leaking too. So there's a rubber section right there. You just keep watching that for a minute, Caleb. Let me find the other one. There's one on this side. So it runs from here. There's a rubber line. You guys are never going to see it. It runs from the frame area down to the bottom of the core support. So there's a rubber section there. And then that rubber section that comes up right here on the low side, like this guy. We already looked at that, just different angle. So this low side line, you know, we can make the argument that it's not going to see the same kind of pressures as that high side line. It's not going to. We could also make the argument that I should be changing these hoses too, and I'm just not going to. Why? Because this is my son's car, A, and B, to change this low pressure hose, it looks like I would have to completely remove the fan, the shroud, possibly the power steering pump, air intake tubes, and Dad doesn't want to work for free because I'm working for free for son's car. So if you're doing this in the field, absolutely 100%, I would not recommend doing this job now that we know what happened without doing all of the hoses. Now, if this customer is irate about his AC repair that you did, that it only lasted a day, then you're just gonna have to fix what's wrong, right? Because you're already eating it. I don't know another way to tell you guys how to navigate through this problem, being that that hose did not rupture until it left here. And it didn't really rupture, just started leaking. And it was really like a day or two. It really was that quick. My son's like, hey Dad, it's not working as well as it did. And then by the time he got here, like 2 days later, when he first said that, like the system was already empty. It happened quick. That leak was not there as proven by our micron gauge. And we also repressure checked it when we were done too. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to tell you guys to navigate through this one. This is a good example of why when you fix a leak like we found, an O-ring in the front, it's a good example of communication with your customer and letting them know, hey, this is what we found. We're not promising you a fix across the board on this car that you won't have any other leaks down the road. And that sucks to say that to a customer, especially if like this needed a condenser. If this needed a condenser, then this customer's out maybe $500, $600, $700 for that repair. Just happened to be an O-ring for us, so not a big deal, right? And then there were some other comments you guys had on the video too, where you said, hey, you should change all of the O-rings on the car. And I'd agree with you. If this is your own car and it's this old, then go ahead, change all the other O-rings. If this is a customer's car, that's hours to do that. It's not easy to get to these components. It's not just as simple as that front one and changing all of the O-rings on the system. But how far do you want to go? There's a fine line. There's not a right or wrong way to do it. Do you now at this point want to sell this customer every single O-ring on the car and every single rubber line on the car? Where we are right now, yeah, you probably would want to do that. But if you're eating this and you're trying to avoid bad reviews because of poor communication, both on your part in the first place, maybe the customer's part too, or just you might have perfect communication and your customer is just really being unreasonable with you, you might have to fix this one. So what are you doing on the fix? You're fixing the line that's ruptured. You're letting them know no warranties beyond this repair, right? You, of course, tell them what happened. This is legit. This was not our fault. What do you do? The other part about this 36-year-old car, if our math is right, hope it's right, the suction and discharge hoses are not available anymore. So I should have mentioned that to begin with. Just change the hoses, you'll be fine. Right. The problem is they're not available. Can't find them anywhere. I have to get this line rebuilt. I have a friend that does them. It's Bethel Radiator in Bethel Park, next to my brother's shop. I used to do some mobile diagnostics for them. He also built the radiator for Caleb's Jeep. So we'll definitely plug their business, but that's where we're going. We're gonna take this high side line off. We're gonna take it down to them and have it rebuilt. Have a new high side line put on it with the right compression fittings. And I am not, again, changing the low side lines just out of labor right now and me just kind of crossing my fingers that everything's going to be okay. That's how I'm handling this. We're going to redo the thing again, which we did before, which is when we're done, we'll pull it down. We'll use the micron gauge again. We're now more familiar with it. I got some great suggestions from you guys on removal of the micron gauge. We're going to apply some of those suggestions that we learned from you guys in our last video. How cool is that? You guys learned from me, but I learned from you too. So stay with us. We're gonna pull this line off, evac the system using a micron gauge. We're gonna recharge it when we're done. You know, the whole deal. If you made it this far, be another great evac and recharge video. Real quick shot of our pressure drop. And we haven't been talking that long and we're already down below 90 PSI. So nothing like what we saw when we were done. Big leak. If I were to pull this under a vacuum right now, putting the micron gauge on this, you'd see numbers well above 2,000 microns for sure. Let's take this off, turn this gauge off, turn the bottle off, I already did. Take my center hose, loosen that, loosen my high side, just draining the nitrogen out. It's coming out of this center hose right now. A lot of you guys asked me too in that last video, where did I get this center hose, because it has a check valve on the end, and I just got it as part of this kit, this ATD kit This was a cheap set. This manifold gauge set was like less than 50 bucks when I bought it. O-ring. We'll get this hose replaced. Suction, discharge. Not available anywhere. Okay, we're back, and my wife is just to our left, so we might get some commentary as we're talking here. I don't know. We should have her mic'd up right now, Caleb, because it could be really good. Anyway, on this car, we completely struck out in finding a replacement hose for this. I took it to the garage I had mentioned earlier. They couldn't do anything with it. They were told, I was told this is metric, and he called his guy, which is down south in Texas. We're in PA, and they do a lot of work for him. He was going to ship them down there, but they weren't interested in doing it. Then I contacted a local Napa that they do hose repair, and they said they couldn't do anything with it. And so I start digging online. And I have no affiliation with this company, but this is who I chose to use. They make a replacement line. I just got the piece. It was custom made. They come in like 6-inch, 12-inch, 24. This is actually a 16-inch custom made. I just gave them the measurements. So we're gonna put that in. We're gonna cut this off. It is actually a compression fitting. All right, so when we repair this, we're going to be using compression fittings on both ends, and you know, I'm sure everyone's going to have an opinion on that, whether or not it's going to work. And you know what? It really doesn't matter to me because I have no other choice. Here, they sent us some koozies and some pens. Okay, how much was the line? This line was 50 bucks. 55. The line was $41. UPS ground, of course. Shipping's expensive right now. It's like $16. It was $56. 56 bucks. And now when I looked at their website and you know how they wanted you to measure and everything, I hope I did this right, but I think I have enough leeway. What I did is I measured end to end, here to here, and it was 14 inches. And then I added an inch on each side for the compression fitting. So I made it a 16-inch line. I have leeway though to work with this hose. Like I can move this down, have that in that area, and then have it down here. So I knew that when I made the measurement. I said to myself, I'd rather be a little bit longer than shorter. No comment. All right, anyway, so that's what we're gonna do. I'll do some better measurements. We'll cut the line. We'll use this, cut it, compression fitting, standard stuff as far as doing things like that. I also oriented the line. I put an orange mark here, and then I put an orange mark over here just to make sure that I get the orientation right. But I guess the nice thing with this is before I tighten it, I can move it. So I'll install this. And then the other thing I want to do this now is, and this is from you guys. I got a lot of good suggestions from you guys from the last video. And one of them was to change my oil in my vacuum pump. We're going to do that. And the reason we want to do that is to allow it to pull into a deeper vacuum. If you guys remember, the lowest I could get was about 510 microns. And I have never changed this oil before. And so it probably has about 10 hours of service on it. Maybe, I'm just guessing, maybe 10 AC jobs, maybe a little bit more. But I have never changed this oil. We'll see how deep of a vacuum we can get with the oil change, see if that makes a difference. The term that we were talking about, I learned this from you guys too. A lot of you quoted it, apparently incorrectly, is hygroscopic, which is water soluble, moisture can be absorbed, but it's hygra with a G. We need to Google that. So anyway, hygra, whatever. Caleb's got the term up here so we can all look at it. And, you know, just stuff that is commonly known, and I don't know anything that's common. I always get it wrong. Oh, there's a drain plug right here. There's a drain plug. I took some screenshots of this info that I'm talking about as far as viscosity goes. I couldn't find a 40 think it's 46, which is like equivalent to like a 20 weight motor oil, I think, or something like that. Yeah, there's nothing left in there. You can definitely see that looks moisture laden. Here, look at the color of that. You almost see some like rust in it. But I couldn't find the ISO 46. All I was able to get was the 68. I got this from Advanced. Napa had 150, and I just wanted to get as close to the lower viscosity number as I could. So I'm using that oil. Should be okay. Using the micron gauge. I'm just gonna hook this up to the gauges with these closed, just so I can get a measurement for you guys. And I could do it right on the compressor, but I don't want to get any of that oil up into here. That's why I'm doing it up here. These are closed. I don't need this hooked to the car right now. So basically I'm stopping right at the gauges themselves. It's not going any further than the valves. And so that's the way I did the other measurement. We'll do a good comparison. We were able to pull down to about 510. And if this doesn't make a difference, it's not a big deal. It just means my oil was not contaminated, and we're okay. One of you guys asked me too about this check valve on the end of my hose and how you can have a vacuum pump work on that. Well, it's a check valve that is not a regular straighter. That entire assembly pushes in. And so when I get it on here, this actually depresses that check valve and works as designed, as if it didn't exist. Watch the micron gauge. It's just going to blink at us until we get down to a number that it can measure. Remember how sensitive that is. 25,400 microns is 1 PSI. Wow, you guys were not lying to me. We did not get that low. It took us a while to get down to that level before. That quickly pulled down to 490. Some of you also commented, this isn't a leak test, this is a moisture test. It's actually both. It's a leak test, and it also is a moisture indicator. If I turn this pump off and this number rapidly rises, it's an indication that you could have a leak in the system, but it's also an indication that moisture is boiling off, which is increasing pressure. Definitely could not pull that low before. It isn't significantly different, but I could see where someone has contaminated oil in their vacuum pump and they never change it and never considered that the vacuum pump itself has the, if I'm saying it right, hygroscopic oil in it that absorbs moisture, and that some of that moisture is coming from the vacuum pump itself. All right, so it's only been a few minutes, less than 5, but I think that's good enough for right now. We may actually see a little bit better than that on the car whenever we pull this down, but we'll use 470 as our number. And that's good to know here too. Things that I didn't consider. You know, I shut this vacuum pump off, and it's immediately rising. Why? Because this check valve over here is depressed, like I said. So what I should do, considering that, is when I take this off, I'm going to do this differently. Let it pull back down. I should leave this pump run. I should not shut this off. I should disconnect it here with it running to trap vacuum or to not let air back in the system. We're about 490. I'm going to do it now. Yep. Absolutely. Something that I just didn't consider is this center hose. If I shut this vacuum pump off with this center hose attached, atmospheric air is traveling through the motor and up into this hose, and I'm saying to myself, and maybe to you guys when I'm doing this, oh, center hose is fine, there's no atmospheric air in there because I have a check valve. Not when you're connected to the vacuum pump, you don't, it's open. Next thing we're gonna do, I'm gonna fix this line. Caleb's gonna record that for me, And then I'm gonna put this all back together. You guys are gonna miss that part. Let's get this line put on so you guys can see what this looks like. We'll talk more about this particular company. On this company's website, they have instructional videos, which are helpful. And given that I do not have a caliper to measure this, I should. I wanted to know if it was metric or standard, so they offered another alternative, which is using an open-end wrench. So 12 doesn't fit, 13 fits, but there's a little bit of side-to-side slop. ½ inch fits perfectly. That's the kit that I bought. AC line repair kit, ½ inch, TR8, 24 inch. It was a 24 inch line, but I had it custom made to 16. So the way that works with this company is even if it's 13 inches, the next line down is 12, right? So if I need a 13 inch line, they charge you for the 24 and then they custom make it. All right, so reading this to you guys and everyone else, it says measure outside diameter of tube to be repaired and inside diameter of compression coupler. Make sure the sizes are the same. Cut one side of the tube section with a sharp tube cutter, making several passes and tightening very slowly. Do not over tighten tube cutter. Okay, got it. Polish tube end with 400 grit paper. The ferrule must be assembled in fitting with the narrow end pointing into the fitting, wide end pointing toward the nut. They're showing you a picture of that here. Insert tube end into the compression coupler. Tube must be inserted into fitting until it bottoms out. Depending on size of the repair kit you purchase, this will be approximately 3/4 to 1 inch. That's why I measured an inch longer. It was 14 inches I measured and I added 2 inches, one for each side, an inch for each side. Tighten compression coupler. Compression couplers must be tight to crimp the ferrule. Do not bottom out nut on the fitting. Repeat steps 2 to 5 on the other end. Evacuate, recharge if small leak is found at compression couplers. Slightly tighten fittings and retest. That's it. I think I'd rather cut it long, have this longer. I think I think there's more flex in this hose. And so as I'm looking at this, I think there's plenty of room for that to do what it needs to do. So that means I'm gonna cut this then like right at the ends. Wait, before I cut this, I had some orange paint marks. I don't know that it matters because I think now with the compression fitting we can do this on the car. If you were using regular compression style fittings, this would be really important because you can't reorient it later. But because we're using compression fittings, I don't think that is all that critical. And then you guys might be wondering too, as I'm doing this, the low side line. I said we were going to do the low side line. It's not leaking. This is one of those times I felt like with this product being unknown to me, I felt like I'm not going to do the low side. It's not leaking right now. We probably should be, but we'll just cross that bridge later if it ruptures again. Not the greatest idea, but I felt like I was unsure if this was going to work. And I think the experiment on the high side, and if this does work, will give me confidence later to go ahead and do the low side if I have a problem. Was this still going?
Yeah.
Oh, what you guys missed is Caleb and I, we were racing. He was doing the other side with his crappy one, and I was using the bigger one. The reason I didn't use this at first is I thought it was fatter, and I wanted to get as close as I could, but you see it did a good job. I mean, I got right through it. So cleaning the inside out. We don't want to have a restriction there. Next up, we clean the area. Just got some burrs on the end of this. Some metal shavings in there. I have to brake clean that. Just want to get any metal shavings that I had right there out of here. Of course, we'll dry that out real good. We still have our orange mark. No. Damn it. Damn it.
It was like on the one of the sides.
Where I sanded it off.
You sanded it off.
All right, don't sand your orange mark off or your paint mark off. So it's going to be nut. That goes. Oh no, it doesn't fit. Yeah, or does it just go to there? Does it not go? Maybe. I'm just wrong in what I'm thinking here. I thought it was going to go all the way inside of there. That doesn't seem right to me.
Because how deep does that little insert piece go?
This insert doesn't go any deeper. Oh, okay, it stops right there. I thought the insert went all the way down in. It does not. That insert stops right there. I know that these can be repaired and taken apart. So I was reading about them. Once the compression fitting is crushed onto there, you can still take the line off, but you can't get that fitting back off. So let's tighten this and just see. Now the key with this is to make sure that that line does not come out at all. So I'm going to keep like some downward pressure on that. They had mentioned not to bottom out the threads, but that's like all the way tight.
Yeah.
And that grabbed it nice.
Feel secure.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that I'm correct now in that.
The thing doesn't come out.
I will have the ability, I should have the ability. Yeah, I can rotate this. And I can also take that off. Now that's a permanent part. No, it still moves. I would have thought that that would have, this sleeve should have stayed in place. You guys can see why I didn't do the low side. You know, this is uncharted territory for me. And I'm probably not doing this company justice by what I'm doing, but this isn't about the company. This is just about fixing my son's car. And if the company makes a good product here, we're gonna know. If I'm doing something wrong here, we're gonna know. I mean, that does hold. I like that. Okay, let's do the other side. Good enough for now.
Look at that.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna bolt this up to the car, and Caleb's gonna shut down for now. We got a video coming out tomorrow for you guys. He's got to make a thumbnail for. Caleb, shut the camera off. When we come back, I won't put pull the system under a vacuum or anything like that. I'll just bolt everything up, and then we'll bring you guys right back. So that's gonna be days from now, but we'll see you in a second.
You gotta do like a snap.
But we'll see you we'll see you right now. All right, Caleb's home for the day. I have this bolted up. This line, I'm actually very happy with the way that turned out. And I just wanted to get the initial vacuum pull on this to see how well it seals up. I'm a little bit worried about the O-ring I used for the high side line right here, and then of course our compression fittings. There's a new seal on the low side line there too, because I had it off, and then a low side coupler over there. If Caleb highlight it in the edits, it's right, that guy right there has a new line on it too, or a new O-ring, and then up front as well that you guys saw in the last video. So we'll open these up. Again, you don't need them both open when you're pulling a vacuum, but let's switch this on and see what it does. Turn the micron gauge on. There's going to be a lot of moisture in the system because this was opened up for a couple of days. Some of you were saying, well, why didn't you put plugs in it and close it up? Probably should have. I didn't. Close this off for a second. I'm gonna watch this one. Close both gauges off. Just want to see if I have some real fast decay here. That's a good sign. Not seeing decay. Okay, cool. With that low side gauge, if you see it down that deep, you're like, oh yeah, I'm good. Yeah, look at your micron gauge. No, you're not. Not yet. I am a fan of the micron gauge, especially for the smaller leaks and moisture indicator. The reason I put the micron gauge on this side of the manifold gauge, I want to be able to do a decay test, and having it up here on this yellow hose isn't going to allow me to do that. So that's why I moved it down here to the low side. You can put it on the high side too, it doesn't make a difference. The gauge on the low side, the blue gauge, you know, that's been pretty steady right where it is. Even though we were between 8,000 microns and 900 microns, I saw no difference whatsoever. Remember again that 24,500 microns would be 1 PSI on this gauge, so about 2 inches of vacuum roughly for 1 PSI. So 2 of those bars in the green would be equal to 24,500 microns. This is looking good here, people. This is 5 minutes and 58 seconds in. Let's do another decay test. It's going to be very simple. That we just close both these gauges. Pump's still running, but we'll isolate the system. I do expect the micron gauge to rise some as moisture's boiling off still. But I just want to watch this low side gauge, make sure we're not dropping. I mean, we'll see it on the micron gauge first, won't we? It does look like it moved a little bit on the blue gauge, but that's just camera angles. Look, from that angle it's 30. From that angle it's 28. Yeah. Still sitting the same on the micron gauge, 760. I like it. I like it. Preliminary on the compression fitting line repair. I am a fan. I'll come back to this in a little while. We'll see where this micron gauge pulls down to. Actually, no, I'll leave this run till we get down to 500 at least, and then we'll get a time frame. So Caleb, it's Friday after 5, Caleb's home. We won't film again until Monday, so I'll leave this, literally, I will leave this under a vacuum all weekend. And I'll leave everything connected. I'll wait though, I'll pull this under a vacuum for probably an hour, just because of how long I had this open. But then what I'll do at the end of that, I'll get a micron gauge reading. We'll leave it sit over the weekend just as an experiment, and just to see how much increase we get over the weekend. What do you guys think? Definitely can do AC work without one of these micron gauges. I mean, I did for 20 plus years, almost 30 years, and now that I have one of these, I don't know that I'd ever want to do AC work again without it. Like, I'm pretty freaking confident right now I could nitrogen charge this system and put a bunch of pressure at it, and I'm not going to have a leak. Not with a 560, 550 micron level. If I had a leak in this system, I'd be pulling it in, be much higher, like over 2,000 microns easy. I am 10 minutes and 25 seconds in. Let's do another decay test. I like that. "13 minutes in." Looks like this has a 15-minute timer. Alright, so we're down to 500 microns in about 14 minutes. And I'm just going to shut the camera off now. We'll come back and check this in like a half an hour, see where we are. But this is actually better than what we were when we did this the first time. So definitely am a fan so far of these compression fittings and this repair. It is a viable option for those of us that don't have a press and don't have the correct fittings. I know this can be done other ways. Some of you may frown upon the compression fittings, but I am absolutely happy with this repair so far. When this self-powered off, it was at 520, and when I powered it back up, it was at 500. And then when I powered it back up again, about 10 minutes later, it's at 520 again. So I believe that's just a gauge thing. But learning my tool here is pretty awesome. It kind of stinks that I learned this tool, online with you guys, and I didn't know it before I turned the camera on. But I didn't know that this had this, but it has inches of mercury too, which is cool. Why am I like struggling to read that one, right? Is that 28? Is it 30 based on angle? Yeah, don't need any of that. 29.899 inches of mercury. And for you guys in other countries, there's 0.693 millibar. And I have no idea what that number is. Pretty sweet gauge. All right, this is like an hour later, still at 520. Initial compressor check, we were down at like 470. So I'm not really sure why we can't pull down that low. I know there's like some physics behind it with the hoses and everything on this car, but 520 is good. We were at that same number last time. I'm gonna go ahead and shut this off. We'll close the valves first. Remember what we said too about the compressor. We want to keep this center yellow hose full of vacuum. We're going to take it off here while the pump's running. Now we trap that vacuum in there. Gotta do a decay test here. I did one before, but this is the one I'm going to leave go over the weekend. I'm not going to charge this now. I want Caleb here with his camera, not me trying to film this on my phone. Just curious to see how this holds over the weekend. I'm going to leave this exact setup right here. Inches of mercury number 29.899. That's just over 3 minutes right there. I'm gonna go ahead and shut down. We'll bring you guys back on Monday. This is after a half an hour. It actually dropped to 510, which is awesome. This is better results than I had last time. And I believe, as some of you pointed out, that this is a moisture indicator. And I think the fact that my decay test, jumped up maybe 20 or 30 microns was just an indication. I just didn't pull it under vacuum long enough. But after a half an hour, for that to not move, that is awesome. All right, this is after an overnight sit. Just to emphasize too, I'm only doing this just because we can, just playing around. I'm not suggesting you wait days to check your vacuum levels for decay. I just want to know. Just scratching an itch here, people. So this is after about 12 hours. We went from 520 to 530, or actually I think it was 510. So 20 micron rise in 12 hours. That's pretty damn good. All right, on my way to a hockey game. It is Sunday, and I just turned this on. So this is 2 days later. It's at 490 microns. That's interesting. The only thing I can figure is it's a little bit cooler out than when I did the evac. Very strange. I mean, it's safe to say there is no leak in this system. This is 2 days now holding this, and it's actually better. All right, it's Monday morning and Caleb's here. I'm gonna check this micron gauge one more time, then I'm gonna pressurize it with nitrogen just to give you guys some peace of mind as far as the micron gauge goes, and being able to hold vacuum and maybe not being able to hold pressure. So we'll kind of help answer those questions. As far as the shift in the micron level that we saw, I mentioned temperature being different. I just, that would kind of indicate maybe moisture. We're at 500. It seems to maybe just be me turning the gauge off and back on. There's such small numbers. I did see that at one point where I turned it off, it was at 520, and when I turned it back on, I think it was at 490, and that was just within a few minutes of each other. So I believe it's going to be that and not really temperature. I don't know what a vacuum effect on a deep vacuum has with temperature swings. I would think that if there was moisture in the system, of course, we'd have some pressure changes, but anxious to hear your thoughts on that. But I think that this is more of a gauge type issue. But this is, when I turned this off on Friday, it's now Monday. We were at 520 from my memory. We were at 520 when I turned this off, and we're at 500. This is 2.5 days later. So, yeah, I'm going to say no leaks in that system for sure. Let's pressure check it, and we'll bolt everything up and recharge it. All right, I grabbed Caleb for this part. We'll get the 4K camera back here in a minute. We're just going to do the pressure check, and then I'm going to bolt everything back up, send Caleb inside to do some edits while I'm doing that, and then he'll come back out with the 4K camera to finish this. Again, I'm sitting here at 500 microns. I'm going to pressure check the system. So first thing I'm going to do, unscrew this to close the straightener, take this off, trapping vacuum in here, trapping vacuum in the system. The reason I did that is I don't want that pressure going to my micron gauge, and we'll just add the pressure to the high side of the system. I realize that vacuum can pull these straighteners in too, and what I just did here is not ideal, but it has not done that. We're okay on that front. Okay, connecting the yellow hose to my nitrogen tank. Closed. Turn this valve on. We'll set this to 200. I'm not going to go any higher than 200. Looks like this check valve in here leaks ever so slightly. All right. Keeping this closed, low side closed, because I'm not connected. Just opening up the high side. Let's get some pressure in this system. Why do I hear a hiss. Son of a... It's not that one. What's be the one I have a hard time getting to? So to answer our question, does a micron gauge, can we hold pressure, or can we hold a vacuum and still have a pressure loss? Yes, we can. It's not my compression fittings though. Those are good. Right, that's the top one here. And then the bottom one, you can get a shot of it. Yeah, it's not leaking there. I'm gonna check the front. But I'm down to 150 PSI. Nope. Am I hearing an imaginary leak? What? Oh, son of a... This entire job is like... Look at the compressor.
Oh.
It needs a compressor. Oh my goodness. You talk about a absolute waste of time. Unbelievable. The air conditioning work, if you're working on an older car, here's a lesson on this one. If you're working on an older car, you better not guarantee anything. Mr. or Mrs. Customer, I am only guaranteed this one part that I'm replacing. Everything else is off the table. No way that I could see that compressor leak with how bad the high side line was leaking before. That is absolutely that black compressor seal. Look at it. Can we answer some questions here, at least for the community? Does a micron gauge guarantee when you pull into a deep vacuum like that and when it holds for 2.5 days, does that guarantee you that you don't have any leaks in the system? What's the answer? I've always said that. And then I get people jump in and be like, oh, you need a micron gauge, you'll never have that problem, you'll never not find a leak with a micron gauge. Really? Am I doing something wrong with the micron gauge? Or do we just prove a misconception right here? This compression fitting's leaking a little bit too. Here, look. You see some bubbles growing. Yeah, see it? Mm-hmm. You see one just come out right there?
Yeah.
So a little bit on that guy. But man, I say thumbs up on the compression fittings. I can snug that up. Thumbs down on this compressor. This back compressor seal is leaking. Can I tighten it? I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try. There's some Allen keys. You wanna stop here and grab your other camera?
Sure.
Let's do that. That's better, everyone, isn't it? Sorry about that. What is better than 2 adjustable wrenches, Caleb?
You have 3?
No, regular wrenches that actually fit better, that you can tighten better. Adjust this compression fitting first. I want to make sure that I do right by these fittings. You know, ideally, I want to see these under 350 psi of pressure, you know, with the system, to give you guys a full review of them. But I can't get there right now with this compressor leaking. I mean, I can, but I don't want to put 350 psi on my evap core. Let's see if that boy is leaking now. Let's get our pressures back up a little bit higher. 200. All right, cool. I'll come back to that fitting in a couple of minutes. That looks pretty good now. So initial thumbs up on the compression fittings. You see where I have my Allen socket. There's like 4 bolts on the back side. I mean, we could probably pop that off and change the seal back there, but the problem with that for us is me locating that particular seal. You think I'm gonna find that seal? There's no freaking way. I couldn't even find a line for this thing. All right, let's just see if we can snug these up a little bit. Hell no. You hear it leaking more?
Hear it leaking. You're like bending it.
Those are tight. I made it worse. Can't get to that one. We'll have to unbolt the compressor. No. Nope. Wishful thinking. Let's take it apart and put RTV on it. Look how bad that's leaking now, just by me touching it. How come I missed that before? You know, this is what happens when you put an old system back under pressure. This is why you don't promise a customer anything. I just addressed a question on YouTube from a customer who was complaining about their garage, and they changed one part, the condenser, and now the garage is saying they need another part and another part. And I told this person, I'm like, that actually sounds legit. Like, that can happen. You're watching that happen to us right here. All right, so do we want to end it here and make a part 2? I don't know what to do. I mean, I could probably find a compressor for this car easier than I could find that line. It's possible. Yeah. And I have no problem going with a used compressor. Okay, I don't know what we're gonna do. Lots of lessons in this one. One is the micron gauge factor. You know, it's great, it holds vacuum, but am I gonna trust it to be as useful as a pressure check? What is the answer to that? No, absolutely not. I'm going back to my old school line of thought, which is when I'm done, yeah, let's vacuum it down, let's make sure it holds vacuum, but let's repressurize it before we put refrigerant in it. Great lesson on that. We're not done.